Welcome to another Nerdporial review. This time I'm going to be talking about the first episode of the new Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Well, we'll wait and see if I consider this Star Trek, but because of my criticisms of mainly Picard and Discovery. More so with Picard for reasons I might get into later. So welcome, everybody. This was something I decided to do off the. I did promise to do this before. I wasn't sure if I was going to. Apparently, it dropped. I decided to get the CBS bundle for Amazon because it was only 99 cents. So I figured, you know what, I'll pay the minimum. I'll give it a shot. So the episode basically dropped this morning and stuff. So I watched it, I took a lot of notes. I took like more pages of notes than I even do with Better Call Saul. So, because Better Call Saul shows you stuff and doesn't explain everything repeatedly. So I kind of want to get into this. I see just another red shirts in. What's up? How you doing? And if you're watching this for the first time, welcome. I mean, anybody with different opinions are welcome and stuff. I mean, I'm not here to, I know there are a lot of people that don't like the new Trek, and there's also a lot of people that do somehow. And I say somehow, just as, just in a lighthearted way. I know some people, have a very emotional connection with Star Trek. I'm one of those people, but I can see the difference between what Star Trek used to be and what they're doing now. So a lot of this is, it's basically there was no passing of the torch. So the new Star Trek is being done basically the way J.J. Abrams did with the movies and stuff. And we have Louise Expiro here too. Welcome. How you doing? So I went through the entire episode. It was 54 minutes long, so it was longer than I wanted it to be. So, but honestly, in some ways, it did feel like a return to form. An episode didn't just end on a cliffhanger like every single other Star Trek show does. Discovery did this, does this, Picard does this, where they build up to something, and there's a big reveal, and then they end the episode right there and stuff, which is just kind of annoying. Whereas this episode actually had a beginning, middle, and end. Now, was it good? Well, we'll go into it. We'll go into it right now. Actually, I wrote a ton of notes. So going into Strange New Worlds, this is obviously a sequel to Discovery Season 2. And just to warn you, they do reference Discovery Season 2 in this episode. So yeah, so if you don't like that and you're out, yeah, I think a lot of people will be out from just watching this episode. So I did spot a lot of problems, and I feel some of the stuff isn't believable. But the thing was, this did feel more like a Star Trek episode than anything I've seen. Now, I haven't watched Lower Decks because Lower Decks is a parody. I watched first episode, wasn't interested in it. And I haven't even bought. I watched I watched the first episode of Prodigy, and I was like, this feels more like the Clone Wars. Feels more like Star Wars: The Clone Wars than anything else. So let's get into this. So going into the very first scene of Strange New Worlds. So red alert. We hear a typical new Trek monologue, which is already making me want to cover my head, Picard style. And we see an alien has picked up a UFO. And then the monologue says that the first alien contact is usually in kid stories and, wait for it, science fiction. The aliens are loading their view screen. So the aliens are like in their system control, something, a room like that, system control, and they see the Enterprise. The Enterprise is loaded onto the screen. Remember Star Trek? Remember the Enterprise? Oh my gosh! So that's the first scene. And of course, then we get another scene where we cut to Bear Creek, Montana. It's winter out, very cold out, very snowy, and we're in a house. This is a nice looking house. It reminds me of the house that Kirk had in Star Trek Generations. And there's a movie playing in there. So, like the Orville before, where they're showing pop culture, this show decides to show a classic science fiction movie that I'm sure all of you in the chat know. What's up, Matt Cave? Oh my God, it's Matt Cave. Remember him from the Boomer Council? But going back, the classic movie that they're showing is The Day the Earth Stood Still. I knew this. They didn't bring up the movie. The fact that I've seen the movie and own it is the reason why I know what it is. And I think it would have been nice. And they don't even bring up the name. They don't even bring up the name of the movie and stuff. Pike is making breakfast, and he's sleeping with a chick who just happens to be another captain. I believe her name is Battelle, Captain Battelle. And she just gets out of bed, and she gets into a little snark. She's like, "Really, again?" And he's like, "Yeah, this dude." Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, this is a classic. This movie's a classic." So I already like this Pike for liking that movie, because that's a great movie. If you haven't watched the original 1951, the Robert Wise, The Day the Earth Stood Still, watch it. It's a great movie. It's a great cautionary tale. Just about the idea of there being a community of aliens in space that are not comfortable with people that have nuclear capabilities. Hence why they included the movie, because they're going to encounter in a similar situation later in the episode, a species that has a similar type of predicament or and similar type of situation. And who are the aliens this time? I'm sure you've guessed it. Our crew. So Pike is making breakfast and stuff, and we see that the Enterprise is in space dock. And let's just say he is basically questioning everything. He's not sure if he wants to return to command. He is basically still, if you haven't seen Discovery Season 2, he goes to the Klingon moon of Boreth. Now, Boreth was the moon that was in the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Rightful Heir. That was the one where the one that deals with the clone of, spoiler alert, the clone of Kahless, created by the monks of that thing. So, Boreth is a Klingon monastery for, and stuff. But they also have, and this is what Discovery basically sets up, is that they have this ore that allows them to see the future, these time crystals, so to speak. When I first saw that episode of Discovery a couple years ago, I only watched it once, because that's all you it's all you really need to watch Discovery is once. So basically Pike basically sees his future. He knows what ultimately happens to him. And of course, Pike is continually tortured by this. He keeps seeing images, whether it's in reflections or even in his own mind, of him being, succumbing to radiation and having to be forced in that wheelchair that we see in, wait for it, the TOS episode, the Menagerie. Remember that episode? Remember the Menagerie? Remember where Captain Pike's in a wheelchair? He can only, he can't, his brain is still fully functional, but he can't. As McCoy says, he cannot reach out, and no one can reach in. So there's like a communication barrier and stuff. So the only thing you can talk to him or ask him are yes or no questions. So with two beeps being no and one being yes. So he sees this, he knows this is going to happen, and he's like, I don't want to go back to Starfleet. So the other captain chick is like, well, whatever you do, I hope you make a good thing. By the way, in the spirit of Star Trek, real Star Trek, I am wearing a Hawaiian shirt. It's a little tight on me because I put on some weight with all the different ships and everything. So check it out, Deep Space Nine, everything, all the ships and stuff. It's pretty cool and stuff. So I just have to. Just gotta eat. It's just gotta eat a little bit cleaner, and I actually gotta do some exercise today, and hopefully the weight will go down. But going back to the episode, so Pike is riding his horse in the middle of the winter, and I'm like, is that the same horse from the Cage or the Menagerie? Remember the horse? Remember the thing where he has the remember the horse he has? Tango. Hey, I'm sorry, but I don't have. Oh. They think of everything. And of course I'm talking about the Telosians on Talos 4. So he's riding that horse. I'm assuming it's Tango. It might not be. It might be just another horse that he owns and stuff. Who knows? But remember that, right? Remember berries. Remember. So he is riding, and of course, there's a bunch of wind turbines because I'm guessing the primary source of energy on Earth now is from wind. Who knows? Maybe it'll work. So we go down with. So then we see a shuttlecraft, and it looks like a real traditional shuttlecraft. Remember TOS, everyone? Remember how those shuttlecraft looked? Well, of course, it doesn't look exactly like it. It looks slightly different, slightly more modernized for a modern, for a modern audience, But it did resemble the old shuttlecraft to a degree, so I can respect that. And someone gets out of the shuttle, and it's an admiral, and we find out that this admiral is Robert April. And the thing is, well, let's take a look. So Robert April. Robert April was the original captain for Star Trek. And of course, then the name was changed to Pike. So I'm going to look up Robert April really quickly. So they did basically what they pulled with Robert April is basically what Hollywood's been pulling with. I'll share my screen and stuff. Has been pulling with other properties as of late. Basically, taking a character who was originally Caucasian and changing them to a person of a different skin tone and stuff. So, and of course, it would never be the reverse with changing. Let's say you have another character from the show, another traditional character. Imagine if they changed Uhura to a different race or something. How would fans feel about that? I mean, it's the same idea. Just because they're Caucasian doesn't make it right and stuff. And it's the same thing with everyone else, and that's how I feel about it and stuff. And and literally it disgusts me. It goes against everything that I learned. Now, I got into Star Trek the same time that I was doing a report on Dr. Martin Luther King. And then, which was funny was, I didn't even know about the whole, when I didn't learn until I bought the DVDs that Nichelle Nichols said that she met Dr. King, and Dr. King was the reason she stayed on the show because she felt like, oh, this is a waste of my time. I'm not barely doing anything. I'm just sitting down pushing buttons and speaking maybe 4 or 5 lines of dialogue in an episode and stuff. So, I mean, it's crazy that Hollywood is doing this stuff and stuff. I mean, and plus it ruins verisimilitude, as Robert Meyer Burnett always says. This stuff, basically doing this stuff, it keeps you from suspending your disbelief. So, but this is Robert April, and Robert April was originally in the animated show. So people are going to say that the animated show is. Let me see this really quickly. Put that up there. So this is how Robert April looked in the animated show. Now, people are going to say the animated show is not canon. Okay, fine. And this is Robert April as most people would envision it, because this is Gene Roddenberry himself, the great bird of the galaxy himself, the creator of Star Trek. So, I mean, so far, the actor who played him, I thought did a good job, though. But I'm just kind of like, why bother with this and stuff? Maybe, once again, create an admiral who maybe served with April and stuff, or there's a lot of possibilities and stuff. So who knows? But hey, it is what it is. I'm not a fan of them doing this, and if you think otherwise and think it's a problem, and you bring the ist word into it, then I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to you. So, but going back to that, so here is, so we meet April, and April basically says, "Hey, like Michael Jackson always says, I want you back." He wants him back because there's an issue. The mission. So apparently, number one, originally played by Majel Barrett, who is now being played by what's her name? I can't think of her name now. Rebecca Romaine Stamos, or, well, maybe not Stamos anymore. Well, she decides not to go on leave and stuff, and instead takes another mission. Well, I mean, like in the Cage, she was compared to a computer. So elements of her in the Cage basically transferred more to Spock and stuff. So what we see in Spock and Where No Man Has Gone Before came from, the whole computer thing, because they literally call her in the cage a computer and stuff. Um so 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 basically, she went with a crew, or with a couple of astrophysicists, to this planet that they basically developed. They detected a warp signature. And if you detect a warp signature, remember in First Contact, you go and you start establishing, you start enacting First Contact protocols and stuff that were quote unquote invented by the Vulcans. A nice little callback to First Contact and to Enterprise, because people and the people in the Vulcans had a little bit of there was a little tension there. So we have that, and so they disappear, and Pike is still reluctant. And apparently April does not have permission to know what happened in Discovery season 2, because the stuff in Discovery season 2 is classified. So, which I felt was a dumb idea at the end of that show, but hey, that's been years now, so who knows. So we have so basically, yeah, so they made contact, and of course April wants him to report back to duty. Pike is reluctant, and of course, we get the opening, and we get to hear the classic Trek, space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. It's 5 year. It's continuing. I don't know. I have to watch it again, but I don't know if they said continuing mission or 5 year mission or something. I don't remember. It was probably 5 year mission. And we hear a variation of the TOS theme by Jeff Russo, and Jeff Russo's pretty good. He's a pretty decent composer and stuff. So, it was a decent thing. Nothing memorable. It's not up there with like the Voyager theme. And it's definitely not up there with the Deep Space Nine, and especially not the Jerry Goldsmith motion picture TNG theme, and heck, even the original Alexander Courage TOS theme. But it's better than Enterprise, because Faith of the Heart just cringes me every time. But I do like the ending credits of Enterprise. So da 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 da, that one. So, So that's the credits and stuff, and the credits made me think of the '09 Star Trek a little, especially the end of the movie with the end credits and stuff. There's just the way the shots were made, and the visual, the photography looked and stuff. So that is just that, and we learned that it was written by Alex Kurtzman, Akiva Goldsman, and Sidney Lumet's daughter Jenny. So Jenny Lumet. So it's gonna be more of the same because of this. So more of the same from Picard and Discovery, or will our expectations be subverted? Well, let's keep going. So the episode goes to Vulcan now. Now we're on Vulcan, and we basically Spock and T'Pring are at dinner. Remember T'Pring? Oh my gosh! Remember T'Pring from the Vulcan episode Amok Time TOS? Remember where Kirk and Spock have to fight to the death with the Lurpa? Yeah. T'Pring is on the planet, and they are celebrating, or she invited Spock to celebrate their anniversary of their first courtship. And of course, they play a little logic game. Couples do that and stuff. T'Pring is like, oh, and she keeps saying query and stuff like she's a computer. So who knows? But they're playing this little logic game, mind games and stuff. And then of course she asks him to marry her, and then they kiss, because that's what Spock likes to do. He likes to kiss, and I clearly have no idea what this is setting up. Oh my gosh, heck, who knows what this is setting up? So they go back. So they're basically kissing, and a Vulcan jerk, probably conservative jerk, playing a conservative, basically say, hey, take your kissing elsewhere. I'm guessing this was a restaurant or something, or a lounge, and they kiss, and one of the Vulcan people working there is like, hey, get out of here, do that someplace else. And they're like, yeah, good idea. And so we get to see a shirtless Spock, and T'Pring. So maybe we're gonna get some of that hot Vulcan sex that I kept predicting from seeing that trailer and stuff. Well, we don't. We just get a pose similar to Star Trek '09, where Spock is shirtless on top of T'Pring, kind of like Kirk, kind of like Chris Pine Kirk on top of the green Orion girl, when he hides from, and then after that he hides from Uhura. If you remember that part, I'm sure you guys do. And so communicator buzzes, and Pike calls him, and he answers it. Okay, one thing I know about Mr. Spock, at least Leonard Nimoy's Mr. Spock. Leonard Nimoy will not show any human aspect. He will not show his emotions. I'm pretty sure he would not show himself without his shirt on when somebody's calling him on the communicator, on his communicator and stuff. Well, he answers Pike without his shirt on. And Pike says, "Are you naked?" and stuff. And I'm like, and I'm just like, Spock just basically backs off into Pring, basically starts taking over the conversation and says, whatever, you're leaving, fine, I guess. I'm not going to chase you all over the galaxy and stuff. So Spock decides, I'm going to go back. So he tells Pike. I keep getting Kirk and Pike mixed up and stuff. So Pike is like, hey, Pike's like, yeah, we gotta do this. And Spock's like, okay, sure, yeah, screw you to Bring, who knows, and stuff. So like I said, I have no idea what this is setting up. Boo, boo, boo. So we're on the next scene now, and we're in the next scene, and we're on a shuttlecraft. And guess what the shuttlecraft is called? You guessed it. It's called the Stamets. Remember Stamets, everybody? Remember Paul Stamets, the mushroom guy? Oh no, the engineer dude, the engineer dude who happens to be homosexual in Star Trek Discovery. That's who they named the shuttlecraft after. And I think this was only supposed to be a few months after the Discovery Season 2 incident. So I guess he saved the galaxy and stuff. Hence, that's why they did that. So they're on the show, and we have a similar shot of them going towards the Enterprise. Kind of like motion picture, but more like the first episode of the Orville, and heck, even TNG season All Good Things. Where he's on the show where Picard's on the show with Tasha Yar. That type of scene stuff. So and I keep saying Kirk. I kept writing Kirk when I should have been writing Pike. So I don't know why, but I kept getting Kirk vibes from I can't think of his name. I can't think of the actor's name now. But the new Pike and stuff. So he beams aboard. So Pike doesn't even bother to stay on the shuttle when the shuttle's about to enter the bay and stuff. They just beam him aboard right away, and then Spock gives him report and stuff. Spock gives him report, and we learn that a Lieutenant Kirk is going to come on board after this mission. So since they had to leave right away and stuff, they couldn't get all their crew. So they couldn't get the chief engineer, and they couldn't get a Lieutenant Kirk. Oh my God! Remember Kirk? Oh wait, your expectations will be subverted by the end of this episode because this sets up something. I'm not going to tell you what. I was completely subverted and stuff, but it's another. I'll just say this: it's something you have never thought of, and if you do, I'll be impressed. So and Spock's like, I miss my sister, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, you have a sister in this universe and stuff. Remember Michael Burnham, everyone? Remember the greatest person ever, greatest character in the Star Trek universe ever? Okay, well, if you like Star Trek Discovery, Picard, that's fine and stuff. I didn't hate her character at first, which is weird because I know everyone else did, but the fact that every episode focused on her, especially in season 2. And even season 1, I just got annoyed with her and stuff. I'm like, I'd rather have, focus on the other characters for once and stuff. So, but just to go on, I want to acknowledge Tatsunami sends me a 5 CHF. What is CHF? 5 CHFs. What is CHF currency? Let's look this up. It's a Swiss franc. CHF is 5 Swiss francs and stuff. Well, thank you for the 5 Swiss francs. Tatsunami gives me the Vulcan salute. Well, to you, Tatsunami, well, I'll do it with both hands. Live long and prosper. Thank you. I appreciate you. So we got that, and And yeah, that's so got that little super chat right here, and then we're now they beam aboard. Okay, one thing I did forgot to mention. Remember Lieutenant Kyle? Remember the transporter chief Kyle from the original series? He usually always got knocked out. Someone would sneak into the transporter room, knock him out. Khan did that to him. I think McCoy did that to him in Sitting on the Edge of Forever. Remember Lieutenant Kyle? Let's show a picture of Lieutenant Kyle. This guy. Remember Lieutenant Kyle? This gentleman right here. Yeah, and here's the shot of this. Is what I'm talking about. Khan uses a pinch to knock him out and stuff. Well, we have a version of Lieutenant Kyle in this show, and Lieutenant Kyle in this show is this guy, and I'm like they did it again. I'm like, okay, because this looks nothing like the old Kyle and stuff. So once again, hey. I mean maybe it's a different Kyle. They just said Kyle. They didn't say Lieutenant Kyle or anything. Maybe it's a different Kyle. Who knows? For some reason I don't think it is. So you know what? Thank you. Thank you, CBS. Thank you, Paramount. So I'm back on. So that's what happens, and then of course we get. So once again we meet the security chief now. We meet the security chief of this, and she's basically the acting number one. And what's her name? Well, this is gonna be fun. Her name is Lon. Her name is Lon Noonien. Let me spell it right. Lon Noonien Singh. And this is her. This is her right here, right here. And so she's a big focus in this episode. We learn quite a bit about her. She is basically the equivalent to, in this show I would say she's the equivalent to Michael Burnham in Discovery, and heck, even I would say Soji maybe in Picard. I think let's just say, and of course the way she looks, she reminds me of the actress that plays was a drummer, and I don't think it's the same actress though, but she reminds me of the actress that plays drummer in The Expanse. So all right, sorry about that. So people in the house are screaming. So so we learn about her. Her name just doesn't sound familiar now, does it? Well, let's just say she is like I said, she's a new number one, and then we also meet Lieutenant Ortega, who is this lady right here on the left. So she's pretty much the so when like Kirk and Spock, or not Kirk, sorry, Pike and Lon and Spock are off the ship. Ortega is basically in command. She's basically the helmsman, so she's basically the Sulu of this show and stuff. So we have that, and then of course, we meet Uhura. So Uhura is actually, this is Uhura right here, and so far I thought her portrayal was pretty sweet. She was pretty sweet, pretty. She was more of the lighthearted. She had the more lighthearted role. She was. I liked her and stuff. I think I just don't know why they had her make her hair short and stuff. I think they should have just let her look like the way Nichelle Nichols did and stuff. But other than that, her acting and stuff, she was one of the more likable cast in this. And now, was she on the? Now, the thing I had an issue with when they first announced this was she on the Enterprise before this? Because she was nowhere to be seen in Where No Man Has Gone Before. She was not the communications officer in that episode. And that was in 2265. In that episode, it was Lieutenant Alden, who was a male, who was a black male, African American male and stuff, or just a black male in general, who was the communications officer. I don't think he had any lines in that episode, but I had the magazines, I had the encyclopedia, I knew his name and stuff. So, and of course, we don't see anyone else from the cage. We don't see I'm just going to say this up front. We don't see Dr. Boyce, John Hoyt's character. Dr. Boyce was the prototype of McCoy and stuff. And I'm going to get into it because there's a scene that I felt was wrong. But before we get that, we meet an ops officer. Apparently, ops is the left chair and stuff. I always thought that was navigation. Maybe, unless I'm getting this wrong, but I think it wasn't ops a TNG thing. Like, especially, Data was ops and stuff, but the left chair and on the bridge, right, left of the helmsman was the navigator. So I'm not sure I'm not sure what they were trying to do, if they even checked, or heck, even checked with TOS and stuff. And of course, there's no Captain's Yeoman. I mean, there were yeomen during this era of Star Trek. I mean, Pike had his own yeoman, the redhead. I forget her name. And of course, Kirk had Yeoman Smith in Where No Man's Gone Before. And of course, famously, he had Janice in the first 10 episodes of season 1, Yeoman Rand. So there's no Captain's Yeoman in this. So I know they got rid of the Yeoman and the Commodore for TNG and stuff, because I think that was obviously an outdated system. But hey, if you're going to make this take place during the original Star Trek, you got to adhere to what the original Star Trek had. If you don't want to adhere to what the original Star Trek had, make it further into the future. That way, fans like myself can bury the disbelief, can suspend the disbelief and buy what's going on the screen and taking it seriously. So, just want to say hello to Sci-Fi Nation, K2J Extreme, and of course DJ Ronnie G, Louise. I think I already said hello to Louise X Sparrow, and welcome everyone. Thank you for coming by. This is just something I am doing really quickly, so I'm just going through the episode right now, and so let's keep going. So of course, I said earlier that Pike is continually haunted by him seeing himself, or seeing his fall, so to speak, from the time crystal vision of himself from the menagerie. Remember menagerie, and of course, and then he has that little lapse, and then Spock's like, "Captain, is everything okay?" And he's like, "No, it's fine. Let's go to warp." And then they go to warp and stuff. And of course, the bridge crew is pretty much mostly ladies and stuff. It's mostly ladies, and it's very different from the way the Enterprise looked during the Cage and stuff. Now I know this was a few years later, so things can change. So that I could somewhat buy that, but at the same time, well, I feel like some of the major characters from the Cage shouldn't be missing. Like let's say Ensign, was it Jose Tyler? I think was his name. He was the blonde guy. I think he was sitting at navigation and stuff. He was sitting next to number one. Number one was sitting at the helm, I believe. So, So, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they did have. I'll give them this much though. In the Cage, there were two technicians in the transport room. There was the older guy, and I'm guessing he was the engineer. I don't remember his name, but he did have some dialogue. And then there was this assistant. I'm wondering if that assistant is supposed to be Kyle, or that version of Kyle. So if they do that, I'll be fine with it, because same thing. So so that's basically what it is. And oh my gosh, it's Brandon, the anime guy. Remember him from the Anime 101 show? I do. So he has become a member of the Nerdporial Continuum. Welcome, thank you. I have to come up with an image for the Nerdporial Continuum. So, and he says, Admiral. Thank you, because that's my self-appointed nickname. By the way, I'm wearing a Star Trek shirt. I'm wearing a Star Trek collared Hawaiian shirt with all the ships and DS9 and everything. So, but yeah, thank you. So let's go back to this. So here's a scene that I felt was done wrong, and they did this wrong because of Discovery season 2. So, of course, Pike's back in his quarters, and he keeps reliving that vision of him saving the cadets, which leads to him being injured, and what leads to his form in the menagerie. So Spock comes by, and Pike offers him Saurian brandy. Remember Saurian brandy, everyone? Remember the drink? Remember that drink that Kirk demanded McCoy give him in The Enemy Within? Remember that? I do. And it's basically so it was a nice little name drop, because member berries are rampant in New Trek. So we have that, and let's just say I said Spock comes by, and he basically address the time that Pike had on Boreth, like I mentioned earlier. Boreth, the Klingon moon that has the monks and the monastery where they find Kahless and Rightful Heir TNG, and let's just say he talks about his death. He's like, I saw my death. I experienced it. I don't know if I. He says he's unsure if he's fit to command. Which, you know what? It's a very Horatio Hornblower type of situation. It's a very Captain Kirk type of thing. Heck, Pike himself did this in The Cage, but he didn't say this to Spock. This is my problem. He doesn't open up to Spock. I don't know how often Kirk has ever opened up to Spock. The person that Kirk opens up to is his bartender, who also is his doctor. And in this case, Kirk, we all know famously, especially in Balance of Terror, Kirk opens up to McCoy. McCoy's basically in some ways, he's his mentor and slash spiritual, he's like his spiritual mentor and stuff. And because Kirk is, once again, like Kirk is like Hornblower. He has to think about the crew. He has these deep emotions about, command and stuff. He has some self-doubt because that's part of being human. It's a very human thing to be. Being a leader is a lot of work, and it's not the easiest thing. So in this case, Pike would be talking to Dr. Boyce about this, not Spock. But the thing is, Dr. Boyce was nowhere to be seen in Star Trek Discovery Season 2. They don't even mention Dr. Boyce, which is funny because they heck, even in Season 2, when they go back to, in Season 2 of Discovery, when they go back to Talos 4 is the planet with the Telosians, where the cage takes place. Well, Dr. Boyce isn't mentioned at all, but they did show Boyce because they did a previously on Star Trek, and they showed the cage of all things. So it was like 55 years later. It was like a 54 year later thing, because Cage was made in 64, 65 roughly. So we had that. So, but it would be Boyce that he would be talking about this to, not Spock. I don't think him and Spock had that type of relationship. Now, I'm sure Spock would pick up on stuff being wrong and stuff, and and of course developing slowly as a mentor. I mean, Pike was his mentor and stuff. So, but I don't think they had that deep of a relationship at this point. Now, maybe it's trying to set up why Spock decides to go and help him, and basically he goes as far as to commandeer the Enterprise in the Menagerie parts 1 and 2 to take Pike to Talos 4 to help him, to give him a chance for life, which I think is a beautiful idea. I mean, this was something that Mr. Roddenberry himself came up with, and I think it's a beautiful idea. Maybe they're setting that up. I don't know, but I feel that this doesn't belong in this. I feel that this belongs in... I feel that Spock doesn't belong in this scene. This is a Dr. Boyce scene and stuff. So, but Dr. Boyce is not a main character. Because I guess... I'm going to say because he's not the right sex and not the right, I'm going to say this, race and stuff. So we do have a doctor in there, but it's not Dr. Boyce. Maybe he retired. Maybe they'll address it, but I don't think I was listening and they did not address this. And I want to say hello to Rough Grill TV. She says, hey, shout out for NC. Well, thank you. So yeah, so welcome. Anyone that just came in, welcome. So we have, okay, so that was that scene and stuff, and of course Spock basically suggests to Kirk something that Boyce would say. He says, maybe the suffering that you're going through, the stuff that you experience, can be used as insight. The knowledge of death and stuff will help you maintain effective leadership. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds about right and stuff. I mean, maybe a lot of people would disagree with me, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more to command than just knowing suffering and knowing death and stuff. I mean, Kirk cheated death in the Wrath. We learned Kirk continually cheated death in the original series, and he basically what did he do? And he never really experienced death until Wrath of Khan, and he was an effective leader that whole time. So, I mean, I think there's a lot more to it than just that. So, but Pike's an experienced leader. I mean, he's been on missions that we haven't seen yet, that maybe have been covered in books. I have no idea. So, I want to say hello to Brian's Gate. He says, I'm from North Carolina as well. And he says, greetings. Just another red shirt. Cecile here. Thanks. What's going on? So we have, okay, so that's basically that scene. That scene ends, and they basically, we need to find out pretty much what happened to the USS Archer. Of course, it's named after Captain Archer, Scott Bakula's character from Enterprise. I'm sure you all know that. So so that's basically what they got to do, and of course, we now go to the next scene. So we're on the bridge, and everybody's on board. It's a really diverse bridge at this time, even more so than Kirk's Enterprise. So there's no subspace chatter. They get to the planet. They get to the ship, the USS Archer. There's no subspace chatter, and then they do a scan, and the ship is deserted. They're not on board. So Spock says, "Fascinating," and then he says, and then Pike makes a joke saying, "I'm all ears," and it just the joke doesn't land. And of course, we learn that of course the crew of the Archer was basically the number one, not the new number one Lon, but the number one, what's her name, Una Chan or something, I forget her name. And there were two other astrophysicists, Lieutenant Key and Ensign Haddad. So Lieutenant Ortega says, "Hey, this warp signature is weird, quote unquote weird. It has a weird signal variance and stuff." And of course, Lon right away figures out, "Hey, this is a trap, and we need to have maximum shields, maximum screens and stuff." And of course, Spock's like, "If we do that, we're violating first contact protocols." And she's like, "Do it now," and stuff. So there's tension between Spock and Lon. So basically Spock says maintaining defensive posturing is a direct violation, blah blah blah. So we get to there's no hails, there's no subspace chatter, and no evidence of any space colonization in that system. And that's why they believe, that's how they ascertain that this planet that this planet should not have warp drive because of this stage of their development. It's a red flag of sorts. So, and of course, right away, right after that happens, the planet fires on them. And of course, because the shields are up, it's minimal damage. Made me think a little bit of Emini R7 and A Taste of Armageddon, where they have these plasma torpedoes that they shoot at the Enterprise, and of course it doesn't affect them with the shields. And of course, Scotty is in tension with the Ambassador Fox, and Ambassador Fox is like, "Hey, lower the shields." This guy's like, "No, I won't," and stuff. Kind of made me think of that situation. And of course, the people on this planet do make me think somewhat of the Amenians, except they don't fight their wars with computers. That's all I'll say. Spoiler alert. So we have that, and of course, what is this? They should not have. Yeah, so that's it. And of course, Spock determines that they do not have warp drive. They do, the warp signature that they're detecting is not warp drive. It's a warp bomb. It's a warp bomb. A warp bomb. So, yeah. So they developed a warp bomb. This planet that we see in the beginning of the show. So the next scene, we are in the briefing room. Ooh, they're in the briefing room. They're talking about the mission. Wow, this does feel like this. I'll be honest, I was impressed because being in the briefing room talking about the mission and stuff, it did make me think of Star Trek. Heck, it even made me think of the Orville too, the way it looked and stuff. So, especially the Orville, the way the briefing room looked. But hey, credit where credit's due, I guess. So we find out that it's a pre-warp. So the planet is called Kylie 279. I don't know why it's called Kylie 279. I don't know what the 279 is. Usually, it's the name of the system. Usually the planet is usually the name of the system, and the number is basically the numbered planet from its star and stuff. So 279. I don't know. So we do that, and here. Basically, so we learn that it's a pre-warp society. They confirm that, and that there are two factions vying for power, and they are at a crisis point. So they're about to one of them is going to destroy the other. Like they're on the verge of nuclear war. So if there's two factions, so the planet is divided. Doesn't it sound kind of relevant, to certain political situations today? Think about that. So, So they basically show maps of the systems that I've seen on Memory Alpha. Memory Alpha is the wiki for, Star Trek. So everything that was in the Star Trek Encyclopedia, similar to Wikipedia for Star Wars. Lots of lore. Lots of names, places. There's everything there, and we see we see familiar star systems. Scalos, remember Scalos from Wink of an Eye? Remember Wink of an Eye's TOS episode? Then there's Gamma Trianguli. I believe that was from the Apple. I might be wrong. I don't have the data in front of me. If you guys know, that's pretty funny. But yeah. So by the way, look who's here. Look who's here. Corey's here, and he's become a YouTube member. Well, welcome, Salty, welcome. Thank you for joining the Nerdporial Continuum. So, but yes, thank you for joining. So hey, welcome. So once again, we see a whole bunch of memorabilia of familiar names from the original show, and probably from TNG that I don't even remember. TOS I know really well. TNG not as well. So names from TNG I don't know as well. So Pike suggests the possibility that the bomb technology isn't native. Ooh. So somebody must have planted it there. Maybe it's like Private Little War. Maybe it's like remember the Klingons were supplying the flintlocks to one of the factions in Private Little War. That was a season 2 of TOS, which was a play on Vietnam. Klingons were basically the North, they were supplying the North Vietnamese, and of course, Enterprise was basically supplying the South Vietnamese type of situation, on a planet. Of course, he had a big giant gorilla, venomous gorilla thing that would bite you and you get poisoned and stuff, and it was ridiculous. So, but yeah, that's basically that. So, but but maybe it's something else. We'll see. But they do talk about that General Order 1 applies. And, of course, General Order 1 is what will become... They don't call it the Prime Directive at this point, but they will. Okay, I kind of spoiled. That was another big reveal at the end, is that the Federation Council wants to rename General Order 1 to the Prime Directive. I always thought the Prime Directive was just another name for it. I didn't know that the council needed to make it called that, or declare it and stuff. And I guess in the Federation Constitution or what. So we have that, and of course we meet. Let's just say they go to sickbay and stuff. They decide, hey, we're gonna go down to the planet. What do we need to do to maintain General Order 1? Well, we need to be disguised. We need to look like the aliens. Remember that idea? Enterprise incident, where Kirk had to infiltrate the ship as a Romulan and stuff? He had to pretend he was crazy, and then he infiltrates the ship as a Romulan to steal their cloaking device. Well, in this case, they have to do this because of, this is more based on TNG, the First Contact episode of TNG. I think it was season 4, where Riker goes down, and he gets captured, and he's under makeup and stuff to look like an alien and stuff. And of course, BB Newworth, you remember her from Frasier, from Cheers? Well, she flirts with him because she's BB Newworth. She's Lilith. So, but yeah, she was in that episode flirting with Riker, and Riker gets her to release him and stuff. It was hilarious. But that's beside the point. So they have to go to sickbay to look like these aliens from Kylie 279. So, and they look very humanoid. I mean, there's some makeup and the eyes look kind of different and stuff, so at least they look different. But the doctor that is on duty, I don't know if he's the chief medical officer, but the doctor that is on duty is Dr. Mbenga. Remember Dr. Mbenga from once again from TOS? He was actually in that episode I just mentioned, A Private Little War. So Mr. Spock gets hit by one of these flintlock guns, and Dr. Mbenga is an expert. At least if I remember correctly, he's an expert on Vulcan physiology. Hence, he's the one that saves Mr. Spock's life. And of course, Dr. Mbenga, I think his actor was Booker Bradshaw back in the day and stuff. He made 2 appearances. He was in that episode, and then he was in season 3, That Which Survives, where he determines how the people have been getting killed by Lucera, Lee Merriweather's holographic villain who basically touches people and then they die. So he was in that. He was in a couple of scenes in the episode. So he made 2 appearances in the original series. So him being on the Enterprise, I can believe that. They didn't change. They didn't modify his race though, nor should they. So just saying. So I mean, it would. I feel the same way. I would feel the same way if they modified his too, because he was originally, he was originally black, and he's gonna. I prefer consistency. The nerd in me wants consistency. So, but yeah, that's just what. But yeah, so Dr. Mabanga, I don't remember his actor's name, but he was different from the original actor and stuff. But I thought he was okay. Came off as likable and stuff. So we meet her, and then we meet Nurse Chapel. So Majel Barrett played both number one, and she played Nurse Chapel. So she played number one in the Cage, and of course she played Nurse Chapel in the rest of the original series with under Captain Kirk. Well, we get a new actress playing Nurse Chapel, and her job is basically she's basically there to provide disguises. She modifies DNA and stuff, and she modifies DNA and helps people with in first contact, prime directive situations go into disguise. I always felt there was more to her than just that, but that's what they just did here. I'll be honest, I did not like her character. I prefer Majel Barrett's. I prefer Majel Barrett's awkward Nurse Chapel, especially when she's around Spock. Because she's attracted to Spock. This Nurse Chapel has to be like the Dr. Girardi or the Tilly type of character and stuff, which I don't know why they feel they need to have. It's like it's basically they have these tropes now. New Trek has its own tropes now, and they continually fill in those tropes, and so Nurse Chapel kind of now falls in the Tilly and Girardi type of character, and she's just annoying. I'll just say her acting, her dialogue is awful. Like, she's my least favorite character. I mean, she's not the most dislikable one. I still feel that Lon is the most dislikable character, but this character is just. I feel this character is just annoying, and her dialogue and her delivery, the acting is terrible and stuff. It's just typical New Trek crap and stuff. So, let's just say that here. So Mabanga does some sort of hand sign to Lon. I don't know what that means. They never really went into it. And then, of course, we learn that the process of changing DNA and stuff is painful, and so they have to get like a little bit of a sedation and stuff, and then get the gene therapy. And Lon is like, "No, I want to be awake the whole time." So, and then Pike tries to convince her, it's okay and stuff. She's like, "No, I want this. I want to be awake. I'm edgy, and I have a tortured past because that's the character I am and stuff." And then Pike's like, Pike being typical, New Trek male captain now is like, "Okay, whatever, it's your choice." And I when I heard it's your choice, I was thinking of something else, but I'm not going to mention it here. So, yeah. So apparently PTSD ? This does somewhat get addressed at the end. So like I said earlier, this episode does have a beginning, middle, and end, believe it or not. So, which is unlike previous New Trek. I mean, I'd have to rewatch Discovery, but I don't think there was really a whole lot of. Discovery, the first season had something like that, but Picard does not. I'll say that. So let's keep moving. So they leave. Okay, so I forgot. Fake Kyle beams them down. So what they do is they get beamed down, and they're still in their uniforms. So what happens is when they get beamed down, their uniforms are already in the buffer. So when they get beamed down, when they materialize on the surface, they're in their new clothes. They're in their new clothes. They're in their new makeup and stuff. Everything just appears and stuff. At least no. They did have the makeup on. Sorry, I forgot that. They did have the makeup on, but they got new clothes and stuff. So the clothes beamed down with them and stuff. And so now they're on the surface. The transporter looks similar. The yellow sparkles, the traditional yellow sparkles from TOS. And of course we have the fake Kyle. I call him fake Kyle, unless this is a real Kyle, unless this is a different character. Beams them down, and of course Spock's like, "I'm not wearing pants," because they want to be funny. And and then Pike. Why did I say Kirk? Pike is like, well, and when in Rome, yeah, very funny. So they're walking on the surface, and there's protests there's protests at federal sites. Doesn't it make you think of a certain protest at a federal site and stuff? Just saying. Now, I'm not sure if this was. I'm sure this was made after. Well, I mean, it's been. I'm sure this was made after a lot of the events that I may or may not be referencing, but yeah. So, so there's seditious elements spreading disinformation about an advanced weapon being developed by the government for domestic use. That's literally what was said. And of course, Spock is trying to figure out like what's going on here, and Pike is like, he's like, "Are you familiar with the United States of America? Remember both civil wars?" And I laughed at that. So I was thinking of a certain YouTuber who talks about another civil war going on. Just saying. So Lon, so Lon comes up with a little plan to get in. She basically decides, "Hey, there's these two scientists. Let's just jump them. Let's just jump them and take their clothes and stuff, you know." So she basically bolts in front of them, feigns pain. She's like, "Oh, I'm in pain," and they're trying to help her, you know, because they're probably decent people and stuff. You think, and of course, and this really pissed me off right here. Lon is basically screaming, "Neck!" She's screaming, "Neck, neck, neck!" Like Spock can't figure out what she's doing and stuff. Like seriously, come on, Akiva Goldsman, come on, seriously. I mean, don't. Once again, the characters are smarter than that. I think even Ethan Peck's Spock would have figured that out and stuff. So I mean, original Star Trek would never have done this. Original Star Trek, Spock would have figured it out. Heck, Spock would have probably just done it himself. So, geez Louise, come on. Not you, Louise Expiro. But seriously, this is... come on. Seriously, this was... this was, like, stupid right here. So, so yeah, and then, of course, she... And here's another thing that people would expect. She talks down to Spock. Spock's like, Spock's like, it's a miracle that the muscular... their muscle system responded to my nerve pinch. And then, of course, Lon retorts him and admonishes him, saying, "Well, it's a miracle that what does she say? It's a miracle that you can finally take a hint and stuff," which I thought was mean spirited. I'm like, come on! I'm like, seriously, who are you? Like, seriously. I mean, this is not. You want the purpose of the first episode is for us to get invested to start building up investment in these characters. And they're trying to make you feel sorry for Lon, but at the same time, her being completely, being she's almost unlikable at this point. Like, there's nothing to like about her. Heck, I mean, even Picard, even Picard was a dick in the beginning of TNG and her encounter at Farpoint, but there were still, I mean, there was a little bit more nuance to him and stuff. Like there were things that we knew. I mean, he was still a good captain. Even though he was a jerk, he was still a good captain, and he's still more or less, treated his officers with respect to a degree and stuff. So, and I don't know why this Lon's acting this way. She's just the first officer, and she's, I guess she's related to Khan. They did not go into that. So I think they're making her into something insufferable, and I'm just whatever. At this point, it just seems to come with the territory now. And of course, she suggests beaming and here's the other thing that really pissed me off. She suggests beaming the people that Spock knocks out aboard the Enterprise. I mean, that's also in violation of General Order 1, because you don't know how long they're going to be knocked out. Remember, Spock knocked out McCoy with who was high on the drug, I forget the drug that McCoy injects himself in City on the Edge of Forever. Not Cordrazine. He injected himself with Cordrazine, and he was pretty much insane for that episode. Spock knocked him out, but he only knocked him out for like a few minutes and stuff. So, and hence the chemical did not the chemical did not keep them knocked out and stuff. There's the possibility that their sedation would not work, and that kind of this was explored to disturbing consequences in the Orville when they tried to take away the memory from Kelly's character, because her younger character, they sent her back to her time, and she remembers everything, and she decides not to date, Ed, Seth MacFarlane's character, and hence the universe gets freaking destroyed at the end of season 2, almost. So yeah, so that's that was that. They bring him on board, and they wake up right away. They wake up, and one of them runs away, and they're just like, "This is funny. This is cute. They're like that guy's like a rabbit. He's running in the hallways and stuff. He's running in the corridors, and this is like, if you've watched TNG, if you watch Who Watches the Watchers, Picard would not even entertain the idea of bringing the Minarcan or whatever they're called, the proto Vulcans on board. Heck. And the guy just runs around, and of course he runs around. Nurse Chapel's chasing him. He gets on board the turbo lift, and he's on board the turbo lift with Uhura, and Uhura's talking to him about sports. She's like, "Oh, you know this sport ball?" And of course, I think she's a sweet. Her character is so sweet. I just felt like this was stupid. This was pretty stupid. I mean, they're trying to make it lighthearted and stuff. Get rid of that dark edginess and make it lighthearted, but I don't think this is something that would ever happen. If you disagree with me in chat, I mean, this is I have to brush up on my Prime Directive and stuff, but I feel like this wouldn't have been done. And I'm not even a Star Trek writer and stuff, so I don't know. So, but they recapture him basically. Apparently, in this Enterprise, the sick bay has its own transporter room, and they can just transport wherever they want on the ship and stuff. So basically, Nurse Chapel heads him off. She was already on the bridge, and she just basically knocks him out and stuff. So yeah. So I guess McCoy didn't really need to ever go to the transporter room in the original series if he had his own transporter room on the Enterprise, because that's the same Enterprise. So this is really, really, really weird. So yeah. So here. So they basically do that, and of course I think they call it the Delta Scorpy 7 situation or something. So yeah, so all that happens, and Ortega's just sitting on the bridge. She's sitting in the captain's chair. She's like, "Welcome to the Enterprise." So yeah, there's a lot of notes I took because of there's a lot of notes I took because of this. I have 4 more pages of notes. I have a lot of stuff to talk about. So Spock and Lon and Pike are going into the facility, into the compound, and they need, of course, they need to pass biometrics in order to get in. So they go through the typical eye scanning, and Spock's because of Spock's unique DNA and stuff, his thing is his disguise is basically degrading, and so he's starting to look more and more like himself. And the eye scanner goes negative and stuff for the first 2 times, and of course the security guy's like, step away from the thing. And then of course Spock, they manage to the Lieutenant Kyle, fake Kyle, it manages to beam the DNA stuff right into his eye. So then the 3rd time he gets the eye scan, it goes green and stuff, and he gets cleared and stuff. And if that was the situation, they think the security would have taken him away anyways, but because this is New Trek, then the script demanded it, he just kept going and stuff. They let him through. So they basically, right after that, they managed to confirm that the Archer crew, number 1, and of course the 2 astrophysicists are there, and Spock's ears start to show and stuff, and one of the other scientists on the elevator, because they're on an elevator, because this planet has elevators, one of the scientists notices this and is like, am I seeing things and stuff, and then walks away. I don't think we ever see that scientist again. At least I did not notice. And they go and they rescue number 1 in the party, kind of like Luke Skywalker rescuing Leia from from the detention block or something. And of course we learn that Lon and number 1 had a history. And number 1 literally tells her, stop being brave. I don't know what that means, but hey. And then all of a sudden, when they're trying to leave the facility, Spock basically says, "Oh, I'm in pain." Then he gets down, he's like, "Ah!" He just starts screaming. He's like, "Ah!" I'm screaming. And then he looks up and he's Spock. His eyes and his makeup are completely gone. Now he's Spock. Pointed ears, everything. And this is a whole bunch of people just got off the elevator. So So what do? They basically do it. They basically this disguises go on, and yeah. So so they basically knock everyone out, and they get into the. They basically fight everyone. They get into the elevator and stuff. And of course, we learn in the elevator, number one's talking to them that this isn't a warp drive. This is a warp bomb, like I said earlier. And this warp bomb comes from, well, us. They learned it from us. So we're gonna go back into Discovery now. Remember Discovery season 2? Remember that big battle at the end of the season? Well, apparently that was called 0 Point. That location where that big battle happened with Control and stuff, that was 0 Point. And they were less than a light year from 0 Point. This planet is a less than a light year from that location. And of course, they opened up Discovery. This is when Discovery opened up a wormhole to the future. Hundreds of ships, hundreds of warp signatures, and hey, they lit up the sky. They lit up the sky for these people, and because they lit up the sky, their telescopes were able to get good enough data. And this is only 3 months prior. They managed to get good enough data to create and reverse engineer, you guessed it, a matter antimatter reactor. In the course of 3 months, unless I'm wrong. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what and they weaponized it. And I'm like, I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all. Basically, creating matter antimatter reactor and weaponizing it within like a few months. Now, if it was like years, I could buy it. I could buy it more, but this, no. But hey, it's new Trek. What do you expect? So Pike decides, you know what? Screw the Prime Directive. Screw General Order 1. We're going to go talk to these people. We're going to change them ourselves. And of course, he orders basically Lon and everyone else to beam aboard, and it's only him and Spock. Him and Spock are left on the planet. And so they're the only ones left on the elevator, and the elevator door opens up, and everybody's there. Guns are pointing at them, and they're like, Pike is like, "Hey, take me to your leader." I'm not joking. He says, "Take me to your leader." Like Klaatu, kind of like Klaatu in The Day the Earth Stood Still. Remember? Heck, I don't even think Klaatu in The Day the Earth Stood Still said, "Take me to your leader," but he said, "Take me." But he literally does say, "Take me to the people in charge" and stuff. Because this is something that this whole world needs to know. So, but hence, you seeing the parallel now between that movie, them showing that movie in the beginning, and then this. Ooh. So, what's up? By the way, what's up, Zax? Oh my gosh, Zax is here too. So, let's see. Yeah. So now we're in the next scene, and they meet with the president of this planet. Or one of the leaders, the one president, because there's 2 factions and stuff. And she explains that they explain that their technology, this warp stuff, is very dangerous in their hands and stuff, especially when they haven't gone over their divisions and stuff, their planetary divisions. And then he quotes a proverb about an elephant, where an elephant, an elephant proverb where the grass suffers and stuff. The president basically says, well, groups powerful. She asks, like, are there groups, very powerful groups, that will not negotiate with you? Well, that's our situation right now, and you only respond to having a bigger stick. So basically, the president says, "Hey, we're not here to follow your rules. I am here. We are here. My job is to set forth the future for my people and stuff." That's basically what she says, which sounds fair enough. And hence she says, "Take them away." And of course, whoever whoever has the biggest stick wins. So the Enterprise, so Pike's basically, they're walking them out. They're the little box communicators from TOS. They're on her desk. They're walking away, and he screams out, "Emergency communication!" And then of course he orders the Enterprise to basically appear in the sky, kind of equivalent to Tomorrow Is Yesterday, TOS episode where they think that the military, U.S. military, thinks they're spotting a UFO, and they see the Enterprise in the sky and stuff, in the atmosphere, kind of like that. It kind of made me think of that, but of course a little bit lower and stuff. So and then of course, as a result of the aliens showing themselves, the divisions are magically gone now. They're willing to talk to each other now. a historical moment has been made. And they're showing the two leaders debating and stuff. We never meet this other leader though. Who knows what he represents? I'm assuming I think that was a guy. So who knows what he represents? So, but on the ship, Lon Noonien Singh basically has a tortured backstory, because you have to have at least one character in New Trek that has a tortured backstory. So basically, she was a kid. She was on a colony ship, and the Gorn. Remember the Gorn? You know, the reptiles. You know, the one that goes, "Captain, I've heard every word you've said. I'm weary of the chase. I shall be merciful and quick." You know, that Gorn, you know. Well, basically the Gorn captured her ship, and they basically killed her family. They took them to what they call a planetary, one of their planetary nurseries, where they basically did evil stuff, experimentation, cutting them up, putting them into sacks and stuff. Evil alien stuff that you see in many other science fiction. And she says, "I was the last one," and they didn't. Because I was the last one, they simply sent me out into space to die alone and stuff, because that's what the Gorn do. The Gorn are that evil. What can I say? And the reason why she stayed alive and that, you know, the rest of her family and the rest of the colony ship did not was because they were surprised at the idea of death, which I don't quite get. They literally says the last thing they felt was surprise, because they couldn't imagine dying, whereas for some reason she could as a kid. So I don't know if they'll ever elaborate on it. This is New Trek. I doubt they will, but apparently maybe they will. Maybe it has something to do with her heritage. Maybe she learns that people who don't think are going to die, or usually are the first to get killed in something her father said. So I'm assuming her father is a Noonien Singh. And who's a Noonien Singh that we all know of? Yep, that's right, Khan. Yeah, that Khan. So yeah, so who knows? Maybe it's because of her, you know, because of her intellectual superiority, her physical and intellectual superiority, that has allowed her to survive. Oh wait, that sounds familiar too. So that's what and basically because she was sent on to space, it was number one's ship that she served on back then when she was a kid, and they rescued her, and that's why she has that history with number one. So number one was serving on a ship called the USS King Jr., I believe. They call it King Jr., so I'm guessing they named it after Martin Luther King. So they called it the King Jr. I don't know if it's I don't know if it was a starship or another type of ship, but they called it the King Jr. in that episode. So yeah, remember Martin Luther King? You know, I Have a Dream. Like I said, you know, Nichelle Nichols met him, talked her into staying on Star Trek. You know, so he's pretty important to Star Trek history too. So that was a nice little thing, I guess. Pike. So we go into the next scene, and they decide to access the planet's historical database. And so what does Pike do? He just kind of beams down while they're in the middle of negotiations, because I guess that's what you do. I guess that's what starship captains do. They beam down without permission or without any notice while they're in session and stuff. And of course he gives them a little Earth history lesson. And he talks about the 21st century. And of course and that's where everything went wrong, was the 21st century. They talk about the Second Civil War, to the Eugenics Wars, to World War III. And of course they showed familiar protests and more familiar protests from, I think, pretty recently that I won't get into here. I'm sure you guys all know what I'm talking about. But if I remember correctly, I have to read up on the Second Civil War, but they said Second Civil War to the Eugenics Wars. Now, the Eugenics Wars was in the 90s. I'm sure everyone in the chat knows this. You know, everyone who's seen Wrath of Khan, everyone who's seen Space Seed knows that the Eugenics Wars were in the 90s. 92, I think it was 1992 to 1996. 1996 is when the Botany Bay leaves, and whoever was left on Earth was defeated. The rest of the Supermen were probably defeated and probably put to death. Who knows? but they're saying that the second Civil War was first. When I think the second Civil War, maybe they're talking about what the Bell riot. Maybe that was connected to the Bell riots. If you know, let me know in the chat because I have no idea. I don't even remember. I have to look into this and see what they're talking about. But we learned that there was nuclear destruction. Makes sense with first contact. 30% of the population, the human population, died. 600,000 species of animal and plant were wiped out from the face of the earth and stuff. And it was 600,000 species of animal and plant life were eradicated. And I said they show certain footage and stuff. And like I said, it shows Earth's destruction. I mentioned eugenics wars and stuff already. So, and he says this to them. This is how he convinces them to put aside their stuff. He's like, life is full of possibility. And he's like, you know what? Don't be this. Don't be bad. Join the Federation of Planets. Join the United Federation of Planets. And be a part of the future. Sounds like a salesman. And then he shows the planet, and of course they show like a little montage of the people on this planet on what's it called again? I don't remember the name. This planet is called, was it Riley? Kylie. No, is it Kylie? Yeah, Kylie. The people on Kylie 279 are basically learning all there is to know about the Federation, and they're learning about the Federation. They're learning about starships. Some little kid cuts out a little, profile of, the Enterprise from a top view perspective and stuff, which is shown in the trailer. And they're learning about space and they're learning about stuff. And then that's the end of that segment on that planet. And then we cut back to space dock, and we once again are reunited with Admiral Robert April. And he says that they're in a meeting. Pike, Spock, and Number One are in a meeting with him, and he says, "I had to pull every string I knew to keep you all from getting in prison for violating General Order 1." And then, of course, he had to pull every string he knew to learn about Discovery, because Discovery was even confidential to him. So he learned about Discovery, and he's like, "Oh, good. By the way, great work, Chris. Good job, Chris." And he uses a loophole. So the reason why they don't get punished is because the fact that they can't acknowledge that the Discovery, whatever happened to Discovery, happened with that battle and the wormhole and everything, is why they can't acknowledge what happened here, because it was a direct consequence to that battle and stuff. Oh well. I mean, this is Discovery. I mean, they're really linking this to Discovery Season 2. And of course, the last thing they mention is, hey, we're going to name General Order 1 to the Prime Directive. So that's the end of that. Then that pretty much concludes that little scene with the four of them. And then there's a nice little scene with Lon and Pike. And of course, we learn a little bit more about this. Continues the conversation about Lon's tortured history. Since we learned that the Gorn let her go, since she was last to survive by being sent to space. King Jr., I mentioned that earlier. Of course, Lon's record, if you guessed it, is spotless. Her record is spotless. Told you. She's the I told you she's filling in the Michael Burnham / Soji role of this particular live action new Trek. So the thing is, though, she has trouble. She has trouble with people. So yeah. So hence why she acts very, unlikable and stuff, is because she has trouble with people. And of course, Pike being, Anson Mount. Okay, Anson Mount. I remember now. Anson Mount. I still like Anson Mount as Pike. I feel like he's not nearly as, as tough as Jeffrey Hunter's Pike was, but I still like him. He still has that charisma. He's still charismatic and stuff. I think he just needs to be a little bit more strict, Heck, even Seth MacFarlane's Mercer was, strict when it came to, being in command and stuff, because you're still a captain. You're still up there. You can't just, take people. You can't just take people's, backlip and stuff. So, but yeah, so Pike basically, so she has trouble with people. She admits this to Pike, and of course Pike explains they're still on that space station, and in the background we see all these biodomes and stuff. There's like all these biodomes. He's like, do you know where these biodomes came from? And he's like, well, during World War III, scientists sent out seed pods in space to preserve life, so to preserve like a lot of the forests and stuff. And let's just say after World War III happened and they rebuilt the cities and started, things started, becoming better and stuff for humanity and for Earth. The forest got too big in space, so they just left them out in space, and then that's how they built their or initial space colonies, was around these biodomes and stuff, and that was their head start. And he basically tells her that growth is possible, and then offers her a commission to join the Enterprise. So she didn't have a commission; she was just there for that single mission, to as an acting first officer, because number one, Rebecca Romaine was missing. So, well, he offers her a commission as chief of security chief. So I'm guessing that makes her third in command. And after that, we get this. Remember captain's logs, everybody? Instead of these stupid monologues that they've had, we actually hear a captain's log, and Pike is doing a captain's log. Well, they have that. So so they're leaving Starbase One, and here's where the big twist is. Remember in the beginning? Remember I mentioned Lieutenant Kirk came on board? Well, we meet Lieutenant Kirk right here. He comes on board the bridge. He has a full head of hair, very handsome man. He's got a mustache. Lieutenant Kirk, and you know what? Pike says to him? He's like, "Welcome, Sam." Expectations subverted. It's not James T. It's George Samuel Kirk. Remember him? He was the brother of Kirk in Operation Annihilate. Remember him? He dies on Deneva because of those neural parasites that basically attach to you and make you act as their arms and legs. That's him. The problem was I never knew he was in Starfleet. So did they change this, or maybe I forgot something? But it's George Samuel Kirk. It's not our Lieutenant Kirk, even though they brought up Kirk, saying this Kirk was for season 2. Ha 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 ha! So funny. But yeah, George Samuel Kirk is the Lieutenant Kirk that they were talking about. That they had to, wait until the mission was over to bring him on board and stuff. So that was the big twist of this episode. So, and of course, this George Samuel Kirk basically reports to Spock. So he's like a biologist or something. So it kind of does fit with what he did in Operation Annihilate. So, and hence they go on to space, and Pike talks the Star Trek talk motto. He's like, "We're going out to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before." And I'm like, I mean, I get it. It was the opening of the original show. It was the opening of TNG and stuff, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful opening, and they ended Wrath of Khan with that. But seriously, come on. Everybody knows it and stuff. You don't have to say it again. So, oh well, I don't know. And of course, that episode ends, and it ends with it says there's a little tribute thing for April Nosifura. We love you. So I'm guessing this is someone that was on the staff that perhaps passed away or something. So, yep, you're in our hearts. So trailer. So we see a trailer for the new season because that's what CBS does. And of course, Andor. During this trailer, there's a lot of things happening. It looks very Star Wars-esque, because new Trek has to be like Star Wars and Game of Thrones. And there's a new Andorian character that's going to meet, or he's like, I think he's one of the albino Andorians from Enterprise, and he literally says, "Magic of science" during the trailer. I'm like, did they do that just to piss older Star Trek fans off? Because I think that's what they did, because people were really pretty critical of Spock saying "I like science" in Discovery season 2, and of course Tilly saying, "Oh, this is the power of math" from Discovery season 1. So of course we see lots of new, like I said, new Trek type of situations, and of course the big thing that they're going to show is they're going to go back to Vulcan, and we're going to see some Vulcan fighting. Remember the Lurpa? Well, we're going to see some Vulcan fighting again, so stay tuned, folks. And of course, the episode 1 has its end credits, and of course, they use the classic TOS font for that. So that's the end of the first episode of Strange New Worlds. Now, overall, I mean, I already went through all my criticisms and stuff. This is very, to me, this is very new Trek. I mean, I do see somewhat why some people say this seems like a return to form, and in some ways it is, but in some ways it still doesn't. It still has a very weak storytelling. It still has all those new Trek tropes that the other shows have. But I'll say this: the show did not piss me off nearly as much as Picard did, and it's trying to be more consistent with the lore than even Discovery was. I mean, Discovery was a complete. I mean, I don't even know why they did what they did with Discovery, to be honest. I mean, if you wanted to make a brand new crew and you wanted to show brand new technology and brand new things, just make it take place in the future. Make it take place in the 25th century. I mean, maybe some fans might object to it, like some fans objected to TNG, but it would have. I think it would have been easier for people to get into. But then you blatantly violate what came before by making it take place in between the Cage and TOS, but make it look nothing like the Cage or TOS and stuff. Like the Discovery looks, and the Discovery is such an ugly ship too. So it just looks like a flat. I don't even remember what they call it, but it just looks flat. It looks ugly compared to the Enterprise in season 2. It's like they didn't even look like they're in the same universe. So, but I mean, I guess you could say that this episode, even though there were issues with this did seem like a return to form. But I think this is once again, this is new Trek. This is episode 1. Episode 1s are usually, and this is true across Disney Plus and heck Netflix and stuff. Usually episode 1 is usually bait. I would say this episode is bait. Now, I can't prove it because the rest of the season hasn't come out. That's just how it is. But I'm thinking because people felt the same way about. I felt that way about the beginning of Picard. I thought it started off pretty nicely with the Enterprise D. It had a nice little, model of the Enterprise D, and then he was on the ship with Data and stuff, and then it ends with him being blown. He's 80. He's like 97 years old. He is blown like across the roof of a building. He lands on concrete. I mean, he could barely go upstairs, and Picard is surviving a blast that moves him really quickly and knocks him on the ground. And he just wakes up in his house and stuff, and that's it. And then the series just went completely off the rails from there. It didn't just. Picard never really stood up. He never really regained his composure as Picard. That would have been a decent arc, because he would have forgotten his command thing, and then he would have relearned it over the season. And then by the end of the season, he would have taken control or command. But heck, he didn't even when he took command of that ship, the La Serena or whatever, he didn't even seem like he was in control of that and stuff. It's a hard one, and of course with them incorporating 7 of 9 into it. I mean, they ruined Voyager, and then they made Voyager even worse with the latest Picard episode, where Starfleet would not let her into the Academy because she was Borg. Well, Icheb was also Borg, and he was in, and then he gets murdered. He got murdered in that episode, season 1, episode 5, Stardust City Rag, where they rip his eye out. He's screaming in pain. There's blood. And of course, 7-9 murders the scientist, and she mercy kills him because he tells her to kill him and stuff, because that's what they do in Picard, is they like to mercy kill each other. So, and like Data literally says, "Kill me" to Picard. They're on the computer. Data's consciousness survived despite being blown up in Star Trek Nemesis, and they could have brought Data back. They had the opportunity to bring Data back, and he's like, "No." No, they're like, "No, we're going to kill Data again." And Picard pulls the plug, and Data dies. And if you've seen Major Grint's channel, he dies the same way Bicentennial Man dies. That same exact, little montage. But yet they're bringing them all back for season 3 of Picard. So is Data going to come back to life, or is Brent Spiner going to play another brother or another member of the Soong family, because that's what he seems to play. All he seems to play now. So, yeah, I will watch the next episode, but if it gets to the point where it gets too hard to believe, I'm not going to continue watching it. But so far, I'm okay with the episode, despite the problems that it has, and despite the disagreements I might have with the choices that were made and stuff. But honestly, the Uhura on the stream, I like the Uhura on the screen. She was pretty cool. Now the thing is, I don't think she was supposed to be a communications officer at this point, but hey, I still like the actress. I still, I liked her as much. She was sweet enough. I liked her character. She, yeah. So, and of course, I liked. I mean, I felt. I mean, despite Ethan Peck screaming, I felt his Spock was okay, but I felt like he should have not been in that scene with Pike in his quarters. It should have been Dr. Boyce, or someone like Dr. Boyce. An older character who was like like McCoy. So, but yeah, my take is Strange New Worlds. I mean, I'm just gonna say this. If you don't like Picard, if you like loathe Picard and Discovery, I would not recommend the show. If you can forgive certain things and keep watching it, then yeah, then I'd recommend it then. But it's to me it's typical and stuff. I wanted to see this for myself. I wanted to see if they would return to. I was very interested in seeing if this would return to form in some way. And in some ways it did. There was a beginning, middle, and end. But the way that they went and succeeded in getting them to join the Federation, I didn't quite believe that either. Like they're like, oh, join the Federation, you'll be fine, and then they just join. So it's like, it's the same type of same writing. It's not good. It's not very good writing. So, and it wasn't very. It tries to look compelling when it's not. Like they try to use all these techno babble words. They try to sound like they know what they're talking about, but the thing is, I don't think they do. And I don't really care for the character of Lon Noonien Singh. The fact that they even came up with that character, I was just like, what were they thinking? I mean, this is crazy. But hey, I'm not the. I have to rewatch a lot of Star Trek and really take note on stuff to be at the Robert Meyer Burnett level of expertise and stuff. But still, dude, I mean, like, I just the way they resolved that story was, even though there was a resolve, it didn't feel satisfying. It didn't feel believable and stuff. So I would not. I mean, if you want to watch it to laugh and stuff and get a giggle out of it, that's fine. But I would not. This is not something I'd recommend. This is. I mean, unless, like, once again, if you're extremely forgiving of this and you're okay with New Trek, then I'd say watch it. But if you're not, and you want the compelling stuff, you want the real compelling stuff from TNG, DS9, heck, even Voyager and Enterprise, and the original series, it's not quite going to be here. So, but that's my take on it. So it's not the best. I'm trying to be as nice about it as I can. I'm trying to be as objective as I can about it. But I felt the resolution was kind of the resolution was very underwhelming, and I just didn't quite buy it. Like, he just beams down and tells them, hey, join our Federation. This is our history and stuff. And then they believe him. Because I guess everybody's like, mm-hmm. Like all the people on the planet were watching the television at the same time, standing up at attention, kind of like in 1980. Well, not quite like 1984, but they're all watching the screens and they're like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, okay, all right, yeah, war's over. Years of hostility, years of turmoil are just all gone now because aliens showed up and they told us to be better. I mean, that's basically kind of what it was. The aliens told them to be better by being in the civilization and stuff. The thing about that is, the Earth stood still. They did not convince. Klaatu could not convince the world leaders to meet because of the Cold War. You had the Cold War going on. Nobody trusted each other. Politicians are deep-rooted in politics. Typical. Yeah, that's what it is. So what Klaatu does, instead of meeting with the politicians, he meets with all the world's renowned scientists. And he basically gives them a speech in front of his ship, and then his ship leaves. And he warns them. He's like, hey, if you guys keep this up, we are not like my people and all a bunch of other people are controlled by these robots. Gort's the one that basically dismantles everybody and shuts himself down. Gort is the terror of that movie of Day the Earth Stood Still. And these robots basically run everything, kind of like what the iMud androids were trying to accomplish. Serving while also, making sure things were in order and stuff at the same time. Well, Gort's race of robots are doing that, and they're like, if you continue to delve and weaponize, atomic power and stuff, we're going to have to come in and do something about it because you're going to be a threat to us, and our robot overlords are not going to take it. So it was a bit of a, it was a bit of a cautionary tale. Even people in space, might be controlled by, robots and whatever, and if you delve into destructive weapons, you could bring destruction to all and stuff. So it was basically a warning, but it was, to me, the movie was basically about showing the problems with, it was basically a criticism of the Cold War and the politicians and stuff. That's basically what I saw it as, and that once again, that scientists probably should be treated a little bit more seriously and than they are and stuff. So, but it was a great movie. But like I said, I laughed when I saw that because I was like, oh boy, they're taking a classic and they're gonna try and do something with it. So, but yeah, that's episode 1. And you know what the first episode was titled? You guessed it, Strange New Worlds. So not only the show is called Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the first episode is called Strange New Worlds as well. So that's my take, and I've been doing this for an hour and a half. So I figure, you know what, that's just what that's just what it is. I'm not. I figure I might as well do this, get this done with ahead of time. So yeah. So thank you guys for showing up. I mean, this is. I can't say this was fun taking all these notes. I took more notes than I take with Better Call Saul, and it's just because they just keep talking and talking and talking and explaining things instead of showing stuff. They need to show more stuff and explain less stuff. But the thing is, it's science fiction. They don't want to show. They want to show as little as possible and explain stuff to save money. It's a budget thing. So, but I can't really. I don't know. It's I will watch the next episode just to see where it goes and stuff. See if it's actually episodic like they claim it is. And we'll see from there. So just let's say hello to people in the chat. Padawanabe's here. They did it in the new Spider-Man 2. Is this just math? I like math. They did that? I didn't even know that. I have to rewatch that. Brian's Gate says, geez, another Trek product I won't be watching. Zach says her biggest flaw is being too perfect. DJ Ryan G is, I don't even think antimatter comes up to the optical end of the EM spectrum. Must be using radio astronomy. Hey, and if anybody knows more about astronomy and about telescopes, DJ Ronnie G does, because he does streams, showing, he does streams of him looking up at the stars and stuff. So subscribe to him if you haven't already. He has his own channel, great channel. Rough Girl says, I love how thorough you are. Thank you. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Yeah, yesterday was May the 4th. Today's Cinco de Mayo. Sci-Fi Nation says, but despite the inconsistencies, it did have an actual story that felt like Star Trek. That's all I'll say about it. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's just poorly written. It's just a poorly written one. So, are Pike and Spock lovers now? Not even close to it. Jaws, well, welcome, Jaws. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before. It didn't say they were the same war at all and stuff. So, yeah. And Civil War, Eugenics, World War III are all apparently the same war. Something like that. Sci-Fi Nation says, notepads full of notes. Would be fun to see you do some full-on ruminations. Maybe. So, yeah, so everybody, thanks for joining. Brandon, thank you for joining the Nerdporial Continuum. Louise X. Spiro, she says, none of the TOS characters should be there. It just makes it worse. That's how I initially felt. And I just like, whatever. At this point, I just don't even care. So, Tatsunami's like, Ree. He says, it's funny, I enjoy honest reviews more than actual shows nowadays. Yeah. So, yeah, there you go. And, of course, Salty became a member, too. Thank you, Salty. Sci-Fi Nation says, wait. Earth didn't have an interplanetary colonization during First Contact. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so I don't know. It's crazy. Brandon, the anime guy, says, fire everything. So, yeah, that's what it is. K2J says, next time, I'll stick around much longer. So, all right, but yeah, once again, thank everybody for coming by. This was pretty. This was an interesting thing. I'll do it again next week. Louise Experience says, great breakdown. You've confirmed what I thought it would be, and I will definitely avoid it. Thanks. Well, yeah, I figure this is like an endurance test for me, to see how long I can last, stuff. So, But one thing I definitely will be doing in the month and stuff, because I know Orville drops on Thursday as well. I'm going to definitely be doing an Orville review, but I'm going to be doing those in the evening, probably prime time. So I'll be doing something similar with that, taking notes and breaking it down and stuff. So, but once again, everybody, thanks for coming by. It's been wonderful doing this. Thank you for the super chats and members and stuff. Remember, I mean, can Star Trek get better? I mean, it looks like it's going in a slightly more positive direction, but once again, that's that could be bait, and the switch might happen. If the switch doesn't happen, I will be surprised. But other than everybody, have a good rest of your day, and see you on the next stream.